What's up, guys? WhatX Boy. Another deck profile. This is my death deck. Before I go into this, I want to say thank you guys for the feedback and stuff like that. So this is just like you can watch this or you can listen to it if you're at work or something like that. It's just something to like keep you occupied or whatever. Just yeah. So this is the death deck. It's really fun. I really like it. It's very controlly, just like all darkness decks, pretty much. But yeah, my buddy monster, Death Ruler Gallows. He is a very good card. Size 1, 2/2/1. Call cost is pay gauge. He has Shadow Dive. That's pretty much the death like kind of thing. Shadow Dive. Most cards have it. This card can attack around your opponent's center monster, so it puts a lot of pressure on your opponent to guard, and sometimes they can't guard because most decks have the open center nullifier rather than the other nullifier, and you can also get around the other nullifier too if you link attack with multiple cards that have Shadow Dive, because the other nullifier can't nullify link attacks, so pretty much make your stuff unblockable, which is very good. Especially in a game with only 10 life. But this card is very good also because it has a secondary effect, which whenever this deals damage to your opponent, you gain 1 life, which is amazing. And it's very good. It's another aggressively defensive deck, which I really like. As you with my dual dragons and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my buddy monster, Death Ruler Gallows. Next, I'll start with the size zeros. I run 3 Guest Piston. He's 2/1/3, size 0, so free cost, and he's death. Pretty solid. Really solid stats for a size 0 too. I like him. The art's very good, and he looks very cool in foil. So yeah, 3 of him helps out with multiple plays and stuff like that. I'll show you a little bit later. But yeah, next is my buddy monster, obviously a 4 of Death Ruler Gallows, and I already went over him, so yeah. Next is another size 3, and another size 1, and he's a 3 of. He is a free cost Death Ruler Deathcution. He's a 4/1/3, and he's a free cost, and he's a mover. So very good in this deck. Helps you with your defensive plays, and also helps you get set up for next turn and stuff like that. Because of the spells like Devil Stigma and stuff. But I'll get over that. I'll go over that later. Also, another card that looks very good foil, by the way. But yeah. Next card, another size 1. He's a 2 of. He's 4/1/3. He's a new card that we got in the Golden Buddy Pack. He's Death Ruler Manifile. He's a free cost, and whenever he enters the field, you can move one of your opponent's size 2 or less to the center, so you can get off your Shadow Dive plays and stuff like that easily. You just have to watch though, because I play him as a 2 of. You just have to watch the plays. Like, this isn't a May effect, so it's whenever he comes into play. If they don't have a center monster, you can move their size 2 or less to the center. So it can mess up your plays if he's like your only monster in hand, pretty much. But yeah, that's why I only run him as a size as a 2 of. Next, Death Ruler Burial. Another pretty good card. It has Shadow Dive. He's a 1/2/1, size 1. Pretty much he's good for 2 crit, and he's a size 1 with Shadow Dive. That's pretty much it. Otherwise, I'd run more of him, but yeah, only run 2. I mean, he's good with the Shadow Dive plays that you can make, so yeah. Next is the 1 of tech that I usually always run. This is another new Death Ruler that we got in the Golden Buddy Pack. He's a size 1, 3, 2, 1, and he has the effect of whenever this card's attacked would be nullified by your opponent. You can take one of their gauge and put it in the drop zone. So he just gives your opponent some pressure. And he's a 2 crit, so your opponent might want to stop it. So yeah, he's just kind of a pressure card that I like. You can always build a deck like working more with him, with being more like controlling and stuff like that with your spells and monsters. But yeah, with this deck, I just like him as a one of like kind of pressure move, just to see what my opponent would do, kind of thing. But it can be pretty good against like dungeon stuff because their nullifier, they have to pay a gauge. So yeah. Next on the grade 2s or size 2s, sorry, is 4 Death Ruler Mastermind. This guy is another like max 4 in the deck. Super good. He's a 4/2/5 size 2. Call cost, you pay a gauge, and then whenever this card enters the field, if you don't have any other monsters on the field, so you'll call him first, obviously. You can go into your drop zone and take a size 1 or less and play it by paying its call cost. Super good. It has to be a Death Ruler that you bring out, by the way. But yeah, he's very good. He helps open up plays. If you get board wiped, he helps a lot. But yeah, it's a very good card. Very solid too. Next is my size 3s. And I run 3 Death Ruler 13. Death Ruler 13 is a very, very solid card. Even if you're not playing Death Rulers, it's so good just because it's a very cheap cost. He's a 13/3. His defense isn't that great, but he's usually not going to stick around for multiple turns because your opponent's definitely going to want to get rid of him. Because he has double attack and he has that 13k attack. But yeah, he's super good. And if you know me, I love size 3s with double attack. This guy's just amazing though. So his effects are, whenever he comes into play, you burn your opponent for 1. That's amazing. Like, his stats alone are worth the 2 gauge. Like, whenever he comes into play, burn your opponent. Awesome. He has this extra effect of, if your opponent has exactly 13 cards in their drop zone, it burns your opponent for 5 damage instead. Super good. Super good. Plus, he looks really awesome in SP. By the way, I'm looking for more SPs of him. But yeah, those are all my monsters. Let's move on to spells. Clean this up real quick. Weapons. Sorry, weapons. I run 4 of. For death, I don't really focus around my weapon, but I mean, they're there just to have that extra attack if, you know, I don't have that many monsters at that moment. But yeah, definitely a very good card, a very good weapon to run in this deck. It has Spectral Strike, and it only costs 1 gauge. It's a 4/2 crit. Only costs 1 gauge. Spectral Strike, if you don't know what it is, whenever you destroy your opponent's monster, you burn them for 1. It's pretty good. And it's a solid weapon. But like I said, you wouldn't really depend on your weapon, just because you would always have your field filled up pretty much to be super aggressive with the Spectral Strike and stuff. So yeah, only 4 weapons. Next spells. 4 Black Dragon Shield. Black Dragon Shield is a must. Whenever you deal damage and you have an open center, reduce it to 0 and gain 1 life. Super good. Also really good just because it makes you survive Punisher. And if people were kind of wondering how Chillax and Black Dragon Shield gets around Punisher, it's because of the wording. Pretty much, that damage is reduced to 0. It cannot be reduced, so you end up going to 0, comma, and you gain 1 life. So the damage happens. You play this card. The damage happens. It's not being reduced. You gain 1 life. So it's kind of like going to the question mark thing with Underworld, but yeah. So next, 3 Midnight Shadows. Midnight Shadows are the occupied center nullifier, but it can't nullify the link attacks. These I just play just to kind of keep around the monsters that I want to keep around, that I don't want them to die and keep around for next turn. But yeah, 3 of those, and then I play 3 Death Grips. Death Grip is super good. Pay gauge, counter, destroy size 2 or less on your on the field. So you can use it as aggressive as you want, like playing the weapon. You can attack with all your monsters, play this during your battle phase still, and then kill your center monster, and then attack with your weapon. Or I always just use it to kill their things whenever they attack, because it's a counter, and it's super good. But yeah, 3 of those. Next is another amazing card in Darkness. Devil Stigma. Super good. Like I said, setting up for next turn with the mover. You can have the mover out, move it to the center, make your opponent have to destroy that to deal you damage, but you'll play Devil Stigma. And what Devil Stigma does is it's a counter. You can't play this during your final phase, but you can play it right before to get the gauge and stuff. But yeah, counter, destroy a monster on your field. If you do, you get 2 gauge from the top of your deck, and you gain 1 life. So it's pretty much a plus. It stops penetration damage because you destroy your monster, not their attack, and the attack fizzles anyway. It's super good. It's a 4/0. It's so good. And it makes this deck a lot more consistent, a lot more easy to play, because most of your stuff kind of costs gauge and stuff, and it kind of costs life, as you'll see in a little bit. But next card, Excel End. It's a 2/0. Excel End's very good early game to set up your plays and get things back from the drop zone to your hand and stuff like that. With Mastermind and stuff, and some other spells. Excel End, if you don't know what it is, put 5 cards from the top of your deck into your drop zone, and you get a gauge. It's pretty good. Like I said, it's pretty good early game. Late game, not so much, because you're already gonna have stuff in your drop zone. So it's kind of a dead card late game, but you usually won't go into late game with this deck because of how aggressive it is. But yeah, Excel End, pretty good in all Darkness Dragon World decks, pretty much, because all Darkness Dragon World decks pretty much have the Monster Reborn type spells. Very good. Next, 2 Abyss Symphonies. You can run 3, but I only like to run 2 because with this deck, it's so aggressive, but then you're also gaining life with Gallows and with Devil Stigma that you're not really that low on life, honestly, because this is a pretty good deck. I really like this deck. But yeah, you can only play this if you're at 6 life or less. Pay a gauge, draw 2 cards, and you can't cast more than once per turn. So yeah, only 2 Abyss Symphony. Next, like I said, getting stuff from the drop zone. This is Nightmare Revival. Nightmare Revival, it says you take 2 damage, but you're pretty much paying 2 damage, or paying 2 life. Choose up to 2 size 2 or less monsters with Death Ruler in the card name and add them to your hand. Very good, because you're adding them to your hand. because you can play Mastermind. You can grab Mastermind, grab another size 1 or 2, and take them to hand. Then you play Mastermind and get another size 1 or less monster from the drop zone. So you pretty much pay 2 life to get Mastermind and 2 more monsters. It's super good. The plays that you can make with this deck and combos and stuff like that are so good. Speaking of another play, a very aggressive play, is Judgment Day. Judgment Day, pay a gauge. All of your death monsters get 1 critical for the turn. You can't play multiple Judgment Days, obviously. You can only play it once per turn. But it's very good. So like I said, I run the Death Ruler size 0, and then I also run Death Ruler 13. So you can play these out, play Judgment Day. They all get plus crit. So yeah, super good. Also works with your Spectral Strike stuff. So good. Very aggressive plays. Next, my 1-of spell, Dark Revenger. This is a trial deck card. You can only play it with 5 or less life. Again, that's kind of just why it's a 1-of. You pay 1 gauge and return 1 size 1 and 1 size 2 monsters from your drop zone to your hand. So, unlike this card you'd specifically want to grab Mastermind and a size 1, and then play Mastermind and grab a size 0 or something like that. But Nightmare Revival, you can grab Mastermind and grab any other, like a size 1 or a size 0, and then play Mastermind and grab the other size. But this, you'd want to, it has specific plays. But yeah. So those are all the spells. And next is my impacts. I don't really like to run too many impacts in my decks, but this is a must of 1-of tech, because it's the counter. Distortion Punisher, pay 4 gauge. You may only cast this if you can only cast this if your opponent's 4 or less life, and neither you nor your opponent has a monster in the center. Same things like Gargantua, except the damage can be reduced. That's the only thing. But this also is a counter, which is super good. So whenever they play their impacts, you can play this and deal damage before they deal you damage, which is super good. But yeah, guys, that's my death deck. Let's go over the side deck real quick. How are we on time? Nice. Less than 20 minutes. So my side deck, to start out with monsters, is Death Ruler Soulbreaker. Death Ruler Soulbreaker is pretty good, especially in the bad matchups that you'll have. The bad matchups are Demon Godo Arc is the main bad matchup, because they're not going to be playing with their center occupied. They're going to play with Demon Godo Arc off to the side, so all of your attacks are going to be redirected to him. And yes, even though things have Shadow Dive, you'll attack, the Shadow Dive effect will activate, then Demon Godo Arc's effect will activate, redirecting their attack to Demon Godo Arc. Because Demon Godo Arc is good. People don't realize it, but it's very good. But yeah, this guy is mainly for Demon Godo Arc. Yeah, it just takes, whenever it attacks a monster, put 1 of that monster's soul into the drop zone. So yeah. Next is another defensive kind of guy. He's Hades Knight, size 1, 3/16. Call cost is pay a gauge, and this is the guy that nullifies penetration. So against other aggressive decks, other aggressive matchups, this guy helps a lot. And even if they have to like link attack or something like that to get over this guy or something like that, you have double stigma. So you pretty much wait for them to like link attack it or something like that if they have to. But then you double stigma it and you gain life and 2 gauge, which is awesome. Next is 2 death damage. Death damage is just a super good side card. Gets rid of any monster on your opponent's field. The only bad thing, it's not a counter, but this just gets rid of anything. It's super good. Destroy a monster on your opponent's field. Period. Super good. Actually, it's an exclamation mark. So yeah. But yeah, next is 2 black armor. Black armor is in here pretty much just for the matchups against Death Ruler. With Death Ruler, you reduce damage by 2. So if your center is occupied and you have your open center nullifier and your center is occupied, then you can just play black armor. Next is Guillotine Cutter. Guillotine Cutter is very good, especially in the meta of all the set spells. But this, you pay a gauge whenever you're dealt damage, and with death, you can deal yourself damage. But yeah, you pay a gauge whenever you're dealt damage. Counter, destroy an item or spell on your opponent's field. Super good. More controlliness, which I like. But yeah, that's the side deck. That's the way I like it. So now let me just talk about some cards that you may tech in and stuff like that. Let's go over some monsters. Some other good size 3s you could play, or at least side, are these guys. The Golden Buddy Pack gave us this guy, which is super good. He's, again, a pretty cheap cost for what he does. Only 2 gauge. He's a 7/2/7. Whenever this card enters the field, destroy a monster on your opponent's field and deal them damage equal to the size of that monster. So this is definitely for like against Ancient World. Yeah, super good. This guy, he's just pretty solid body. He's a 8/2/8, pay 2 gauge, and he has double attack. Pretty good. This guy, he's another like kind of solid body. He's a 6/2/6, and he gets whenever he comes into play, you mill the top 2 cards. He's mainly for death, but you can also play him in this just because you can grab monsters from your drop zone pretty easily. But yeah, he's just a big body that you can, again, just double stigma. And some other plays that you could play around with is mixing Spectral Strike with the Shadow Dive effect. So you could like attack. You can say they have a center monster. You can attack with your Shadow Dive around their center monster, and then to finish off that monster in the middle, you can Spectral Strike it and deal them damage while you kill their monster. Pretty good. Yeah. Just kind of awkward to play, kind of, but yeah. And it's very gauge heavy with that build. Next is just kind of a heavy attacker, just because Death Rulers don't have that big of attack. They want to focus on like doing effects and stuff. This is just a tech that you could put in just to hit your opponent's monsters if you need to get them off the field. It's 6/1/3, size 1, and it's a black dragon and a deep. Just a tech you might want to think of. Then this is a Death Ruler, and it's a 5/1/2. He's a free cost, so he can hit some things, but the 1 crit kind of hurts him. So that's why I don't really main him or side him, because I want to just kind of keep my pressure on my opponent. But he does have the Shadow Dive with the 5k attack, so you can attack people rather than hitting around your opponent's monster. Then next, some people may want to think about this guy just because he's a death, and he came in the trial deck. He's a 2/2/2, size 1, and the monster in front of this minuses the defense by 3. It's not that good, honestly. Like, some people may think of running this, but there's better things. And the only way you play this is playing this into your center, but you don't need to minus that monster by whatever because you're gonna attack around it with Shadow Dive. It's just no, just don't run it. Next, another guy you can think of is the Black Knight, size 0. The stats are just switched around, so he can kind of hit more things. But the main reason I run the Death Ruler size 0 is because he's a Death Ruler and he can gain the crit from Judgment Day. But again, he's pretty decent to play. Some other weapons that you can think about playing. This is just a free cost 3/2, just so it won't take up gauge. But since you'll be getting a lot of gauge using Devil Stigma, and you kind of want to use up that gauge, so you can get things into the drop zone and then bring them back and stuff like that. So you kind of want to use your gauge, and it's not like this deck is very consistent. Like Devil Stigma makes it very consistent. The bringing back cards from the drop zone make it very consistent. But yeah, and again, like I said, having a weapon with Spectral Strike instead of Shadow Dive is a lot better than a Shadow Dive weapon, just because this is a free cost, but it's a 3/1, and you're usually gonna, like I said, have your center occupied, so yeah, it's not really a card to be used. A spell you can think of, this is just kind of like a kind of crappier Death Grip. You pay a gauge, counter, destroy size 1 or less on your opponent's field. If you want to be way more control-y, you could run this and Death Grips, but it's kind of makes it more gauge heavy, so yeah. I mean, you pay the same cost for Death Grips, so why not just run Death Grips? Yeah. So this is an awkward card. It's 4 death. It's a set spell. You can only have 1 on your field at a time. And it says, when a death monster on your left or right would be destroyed, you may pay a gauge. If you do, you may choose a size 1 death monster with a different card name from that card and call it as tapped by paying the call cost. It's very awkward because you're calling it tapped when something is destroyed. So yeah, you're refilling your field, but you can do that on your following turn. It's awkward. If it called it stood, it would be amazing, just because you could do Devil Stigma plays with it, and Death Grip plays with it. But yeah, it tries, and it's just not there. But yeah. Anyways, that is my Death Ruler deck. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. And yeah, if you like these, please tell me. My next deck is probably going to be my updated Asgard build, because Asgard is super good now and super fun. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. See ya.